Hello everybody, Steven here with Cardboard Coalition, and today I figured I'd bring you a how to play of Masters of the Universe, the board game, Clash for Eternia. Long name, right? Alright, so this is for 1 to 5 players, it's for ages 14 plus, and it says it takes about 1 hour. Alright, so I'm going to try to go through the setup, but I already set it all up, and there's certain things that they want you to do. So the first thing that they want you to do is you need to figure out how you want to play the game. I guess is the best way to say it, how you want to play the game. So first you want to figure out some stuff. You want to figure out who is going to be the one and who's going to be the many, or if you're going to play the AI versus everyone. So everyone versus the AI, or one versus many, and they call it the controller versus the player. So first you got to figure that out. Once you figure that out, you go ahead and you select a scenario. Where's my scenario book? So you have a whole book that has scenarios in it, and there's some things to know about scenarios. So it'll tell you, so right here we have controller needs to be evil warriors, and this is a scenario that the AI can play, right? So over here it says open sides. That means either the controller can be the heroes, or the controller can be the heroic warriors, or they can be the evil warriors. But for this scenario, the controller needs to be the evil warriors. So how we have it set up is for the controller, who's going to be the evil warriors, against the many, the players, which are going to be the heroic warriors. Right? Now, once you go ahead and pick your scenario, it might dictate what the controller has to play. It might not. So if it doesn't dictate what the controller has to play, you can pick factions. You can go straight good and evil. If you see right here, if I can get Evil Lynn's card out, this is all packed in really good. You see the orange around the edge of her card? That designates an evil warrior. And then you have someone like He-Man over here who has the green around their card, right? You have the green right here. And then for Evil Lynn, it's the same thing. You'll have purple right here for the good and evil and good. So this is a good guy. The other thing that you have is you have factions. So Gray Skull's in the background. If you notice, all the heroic heroes that we have here have Gray Skull in the background. They're all of the same faction, right? And then they Snake Mountain, I believe, is in the background of this one. I'd have to really look. Yep, see Snake Mountain's in the background. That designates, see there's the purple border. That designates they're all in a faction together. Because you could choose to play factions versus factions. But you can't mix good and evil players together. And you can't mix factions together. Alright. So once you figure out, you pick the scenario, you decide who's going to be the controller. If you can decide if they're going to be good or bad guys. In this case, they have to be the bad guys. Right? Once that is done, it is time to go ahead and start setting up the players so they're ready to play. All right, so to set up the players, what do we need to do? They need to select their character. Once they've selected their character, not just the faction that they're going to play, but what character they want to be. Remember, they all have to be in the same faction. You give them their model, which He-Man's model is already over here. Like I said, I kind of already set this up. So you give them their model. Then you go ahead and give them their player card or their character card, which is right here. This is the big card. The next thing that you give them is you give them two, phase cards, activation cards. You give them their 2 activation cards. So this is what it looks like. It's their picture, but on the back it'll say power system, and it tells you these are for players. If you're a player, you get these 2. Right, so you give them their 2 activation cards, and then after that, what you do is you give them their 3 skill cards. So you have 3 skill cards, right? You have green. If you look at the background, you have green, you have yellow, and you have red, right? And these are double-sided, and we'll talk about that when you can actually get some of these skills. So once every player has that, they have their miniature and all that, they're pretty much ready to go. What I would say at this point I like to do is I also like to give them, I can't remember the name of these, but they're like HP tokens, right? So you give them their little token too. So there's He-Man's. And so when it gets to this part, you already have them all out and you can set them up. All right, it doesn't say that in the book, but I like to do that. All right, and then we move on to the controller, right? So the controller is going to pick 3 characters, right? So for our example, we're giving the controller Merman, Skeletor, and Evil Lyn. You also give them their miniatures, which, like I said, they're already set out there. There's Skeletor already set out. You give them their miniatures. And you also give them their activation cards, but there's a different back. It says controller, right? You only get one for each character. And you also get this one, which is the strategy card, and we'll talk about how the strategy works later. So you give them their controller, the black back, you give them one for each character, and then make sure they get the strategy card. All right, and you go ahead and give them that, and they're happy and ready to go. Not yet, though, you say. Not yet? You are correct, because there's other things we need to do. All right, so you have the controller board, and then you want to put out the skill cards. These are the skill cards right here. And we'll talk about some more later, but the back side of these skill cards are gold trimmed instead of black trimmed. So you give them their player board, the controller board, you give them their 4 skill cards. The other thing that you want to make sure that you do is you want to give them their minions, right? Well, the minions, because this scenario calls for all the minions to be out on the board. So the minions are already out. The hover bots are already all over the board. I think he was right here. I don't remember. All right, so, and you also give them their minion card. So here is the Hoverbot minion card, and that minion card goes right there. There's a little mark to show you kind of where it goes. Now, there are elite minions. So for the bad guys in the base box, you have Shadow Beasts, and you have their little miniatures, only 2 of these guys. But special things bring out these elite minions, and it'll tell you elite minion when it tells you you can bring it out. All right. So we've gotten all that out there. Then you want to make sure that the controller gets the strategy deck, right? And they shuffle it up and they get it ready to play. And this is going to give them extra abilities to help thwart whoever they're against. In this case, the good guys, bad guys, if you're playing as a good guy. Just go ahead and set that right there and they're ready to go. All right, so players ready to go, controllers ready to go. Now, the next thing that we want to do is we want to set up the HP track, the turn order. This is the HP. This is your turn order, and then your escalation. I don't know how the sword got knocked around like that. It's supposed to kind of be on 0. You can do it any way you want, but we'll point it at 0. All right, so what you do here is first you want to get, like I had said, each player has a matching token. Now, these don't come like this in the game. I actually got little coin things you can get on like Amazon, like 200 for 11 bucks. But they fit them perfectly. If you want to know, you can hit me up in the comments and I can tell you what they are. I can look at it and tell you what they are. But they're just cardboard tokens, right? So each person has one. You go ahead and set them based on their power. So if we look at He-Man here, we have his power right there in the heart. So we go ahead and put He-Man at 10. And you go ahead and set everybody up. Then after you do that, you go ahead and you want to place the escalation, I can say escalation track marker, right? Which is the Sword of Power, at 0. Now, when I was playing the game the other day, I didn't realize this, and I'm not going to say what I did to confuse you guys, but you also have these 2 tokens. This means player, this means controller. If you have any kind of scenario, you choose a scenario where you have to get to a certain number, you can also, this would be when you put those tokens out on the 0. And these are just to keep track, right? So you can see who's gone where everybody's at. All right. Once all that's done, of course, you want to make sure that the dice are out. This is also doesn't come with the game. If you know, this is like a little game tray thing. But you want to make sure you put out the power cubes. And I realized after playing a game or two, it's good to put out the dazed tokens. So they're in reach. These are the 2 tokens that you're going to use all the time in the game. All right. So we have those out. I actually think I skipped a step that they tell you to do. They tell you to put out the board, right? Or you lay out the scenario. You don't put out the board, you lay out the scenario. Now, when you lay out the scenario, we're going to go back to the scenario book. Lucky I had it right on hand. And the scenario is going to tell us what we need to put out. It has a list of spawn points where to put them minions. That's why the minions are already out. And then this one has, what are they called? They're special rules. They're scenario tokens. There, I had to look at it for a second. These are scenario tokens. Oh, we found Adam. All right, and he's laughing at us. So it tells you what you have to put out. It tells you exactly where you put it. Don't mess up like me. Make sure you orientate. You have the little title on one side. Orientate your map that way. You're going to get a little confused on some of the scenarios. But you go ahead and put it out. And as you can see, let's go right here. We have those P's are right under there. This tells us this is the spawn point. So you go ahead and put out all the tokens. We have our terrain tokens out, our boulder tokens out, and everything. We have that all done. We're almost ready to go. So once you get the scenario, you get all the tokens out, you want to make sure for all the terrain, you go ahead and put out the terrain cards. Right? And this is going to help you out a lot as you play the game because this tells you everything you really need to know about the terrain. All right, you go ahead and set those out so everybody can see them. Everybody can grab them, everyone can grab them. And last but not least, let's not forget a player aid. So give everybody a player aid for space. I didn't really have enough room, so I just put one out. It also gives you some of the key terms like boost and surge, push, re-rolls, and daze to let you know. So you go ahead and hand everybody one of those. Also, on the back of the books, on the back of the rule book, you have a summary breakdown, which follows your player aid. And then you also, on the back of the source book, or the scenario book, you have a player aid. So you can actually have these out too if you wanted. All right. We have the game all set up. We're ready to play, right? So what is this game, right? This game is a one versus many. It's a scenario game. So you play each scenario and you play through it. So in this game, what you're really doing is you're playing with your He-Man toys. It's what it is. You're doing a one versus many. I've played a couple scenarios. This is rescue. The other one was like you're trying to control an area, get the most points by controlling Eternia's mountains. They're just scenarios that you play through in Eternia, in the Masters of the Universe right? So that is really the game, and how it works is you have the one person trying to thwart the many, and remember there's always AI involved too, and turns go back and forth. And how you know who goes is through the turn order phase. Well, not turn order phase, but in the turn order phase you set it up and then you do the actions. So there are 2 phases per round. You have your turn order phase, and this is where you choose cards and set them down. Now remember, all the heroes have 2 cards. That means one character could go twice if you choose, right? But first, it's the controller. And what happens when you go into, and it's always the controller first, when you go ahead and you do the order phase, the controller looks at their guys and their strategy card, and they decide what order they want to go in. We're just going to kind of go like this, and this is so we'll do that one. You don't show anybody who you're putting out. Is the controller. You go ahead and put out your cards. This is the order that things are going to activate on your turn. Then the heroes go ahead and they talk amongst themselves. Now, this is a lot like if you've played Rise of Moloch, this is a lot like that. If not, just ignore me. But except for the Rise of Moloch, the controller kind of leaves the room. I don't think they called it a controller in that game, but you leave the room. So maybe it's a mastermind, but you leave the room so all the good guys can talk. In this one, they actually say the good guys have to stay around the table. But now they can decide, does one player want to go twice? Do we want to do one for each player? So we're just going to say this. And once again, with the players, you do not tell anybody, well, you don't tell anybody. Everybody at the table knows it but the controller. You keep it secret from the controller who goes in what order, right? Now, you could talk about it, but you want to put them face down. Controller might forget, even if you say what order they're going in. Controller might forget. Once they're all set up, that's the end of the order phase. Now, once the order phase is over, then you go ahead and you just go into the action phase. This is the phase where you take actions. And to do that, you just take your turns and you flip the card. So when it's an action phase, the first thing that you do is you take any power that's up here. So if you see right here, there's 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, and 3. We found that it's easier to remember if you put the cubes out. Then you don't have to remember if you forget them, but it is a little extra bean counting and stuff that you have to do, maintenance you have to do for the game. So in this case, we know Merman's going first. He gets no energy, no power cubes, so he doesn't get any power cubes. And he gets 2 actions, right? And with his 2 actions, there is a list of things that he can do, all right? Where's our card? We could probably just go off the card. Let's teach it from the card. There we go. So This is the character activation phase, right? So they can attack. They can attack anybody who's around them. They have no one around them. They can interact, sometimes like checking to see the objectives or getting the objectives to pop, go off, however you want to say it, right? They can move, and you can move up to 3 spaces. And this is just basic unless something else changes it. And there are things on your cards that change it. So He-Man could go 1, 2, 3, right? Or he can attack, nothing around him. All right. And then the other thing is you have your bonus actions. And they're telling you to remember that bonus actions are free actions. So I will show you He-Man. Nice, I put He-Man right there. So He-Man down here has Indomitable, a bonus action. That means it doesn't count towards your actions. So even though they have it listed here under actions, it's trying to tell you it's a bonus action, and you can only do it once per activation. Now remember, he might activate twice if the heroes decide to go that way. But you would also have to spend 2 power cubes, and we'll talk about how that goes here in a bit. All right. And then you have your strategy activation, right? And that means, so Merman goes, right? He does this thing. Let's go ahead and just move him around a little bit so it looks like we're doing something. He goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? And He-Man was like, I smell a merman. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They both go ahead and move, right? So Merman's gone. He-Man's gone. He-Man would have 1 power. So he would actually have Indomitable. Why does he get 1 power? Because the power cube up there. And when you get a power, you have to, as soon as you get it, you have to allocate it to one of your abilities, right? So right now, all He-Man has is the abilities down here at the bottom of his card, right? Once we start hitting escalations and he has more abilities, he can put things here. You could never put a power cube in a slot where there isn't a skill. Sorry, I was calling them abilities, where there isn't a skill. No skills here, no power cube. So He-Man, you know what, I got the 1 skill because they're right there. So they've both gone, they've both done their 2 actions, they used them both to move and they ran towards each other. So then you go to the next person, you flip it over and it says strategy, right? What is strategy? This is for the controller. So right here it tells you your strategy activation. First thing you want to do is activate minions, right? Each minion moves, then attacks in that order. So all minions first move and then they attack. He doesn't need to move to attack, he could just attack. He just moves, he moves, and the controller gets to decide where these minions kind of go, right? So he moves, they hear trouble down here, they're all going to move down this way. They heard He-Man yell and go off and run. So if this is when the strategy card pops. Also, we forgot there, the controller gets 1 energy. Now the controller puts his energy towards any of his skills down here, right? Or any of his characters, right? And he just chooses one and then he goes ahead and puts an energy right there, right? So we're going to choose down there. We're going to put that energy. All right, we've moved our minions. And then what we would do is we would attack. So to know how you attack, this goes for everybody, but we can grab the minion card right here to show you. You'll have their attack, Whirling Blade, 2 swords, right? He-Man has his sword of power. He rolls 3. Well, it's not that the minion rolls 2 swords. I'll explain that here in a second. He-Man rolls 3. All right. The minion has some extra stuff. We won't read through it. I think it's an extra die for every Grayskull, but we'll explain how that works. Now, He-Man also has some extra bonuses, right? These are bonus things he can do when he does stuff. So this is an attack bonus. He can roll 3 extra dice if he spends 2 energy. He has to, if he does that, he would have to spend energy right from the spot that he's at, that it's allotted to. So it has to be allotted to this skill, and he can use that energy. All right, so little old Hoverbot is going to be the one to show us how to attack. So he gets to roll 2 dice. So he grabs 2 dice, and he gets to roll them. And it's telling you, what this sword is telling you is melee, as opposed to, do I have someone? I think I do. As opposed to Man-at-Arms, which gives you ranged, right? So it's melee. So for a Hoverbot to pull off melee, they have to be in adjacent, what are these called? Hexagon, whatever. They have to be in an adjacent area next to whoever they're attacking. They would take their 2 dice, they roll them. So this is a range. That's a success for range. What we were looking for was a sword. That's a success in a melee attack. But we did get a Castle Grayskull. And what that means is a success in range or melee attack, right? And it also means that the controller, oh, never mind. We can't. It says it right there. I can't gain any energy because it's the robot. Now, if I would have rolled that with one of my characters, that also means I gain an energy. So the robot gets one hit. Hoverbot gets one hit against He-Man. We look at He-Man. He has 10. He has no armor. Where the armor is right there. So that means 2 armor, right? So He-Man has no armor. He gets knocked down 1 by the Hoverbot. All right. So the other thing that we can do once this card's flipped, right, our strategy card, right, is we can activate the controller board, pay for activation skills from the controller board, right? Here's our controller board. Here's our skills. We can pay for any of these actions. So we're going to say, hey, we're paying this, right? Woo. Knocking old Evil Lynn around. I'm sorry, Evil Lynn. All right, and we're going to decide, and we paid it from this area with this skill, and what we're going to do is we're paying 1 to draw a strategy card. And it says pay 1 to play a strategy card. Well, we only have 1 energy. We draw a card off the top. We go ahead and look at it, and it tells us what we can do. Refuse to yield. When one of your characters is attacked, they gain a free defense boost, gain +2, right? Free defense boost, gain +2. Now, you don't have to play it right away. You can just keep it in your hand. You can have as many cards, strategy cards in your hand as you want. But once you run out of strategy cards, there's no shuffling the discard deck. If I use this card, I'd have to pay 1 energy, and then it's gone. It's pretty much out of the game. They say put it in the discard, and there's a reason, but it's pretty much out of the game. So if I use all these up really quick, I don't have any more strategy cards left. All right. So those are the 2 things you do when you do the strategy. Then hero goes, they get their energy, then they activate, back and forth until you get through this whole phase, right? All the way through this phase. Oop, I need 2 hands and I only got 1 right now. I did it out of order, I'm sorry guys. So you would go like that, right? Once you flipped all these, then the phase is over, right? And then you would go back and do the whole thing again. Everyone take their cards back up here. The controller would put out their cards. Heroes put out their cards. And then you play through them again. Now, one thing I do want to talk about is the balance of power. And it talks to you about it right here. Whenever a hero uses power, so if He-Man, he needs 2, but let's say he has something where he can use 1 power, that goes directly to the controller. And the controller can put that power anywhere he wants on one of his, I'm going to keep calling them heroes, but one of his characters or down here on one of his skills. But anytime a hero uses power to do something to one of their skills, right, they give it to the controller. Whenever the controller uses one of their energy, it goes to the discard pile, the group of power. I can't think right now. And there on the card, it tells you that's the balance of power, right? Heroes use power, goes to controller. Controller uses power, it goes to the stock. I can't think of the name. There's a name in my head, but I can't think of it. All right, you're probably yelling it at me through the TV. All right, and then, as I said, you go round and round until one of the teams hit the objective. Where's my scenario book? What is my objective? Oh, I remember the objective for this. I think I can do it without even flipping the book. The villains, right? The evil warriors, their objective is to knock out, to KO good guys, the heroic warriors, at least 3 times. That's the scenario that's just the scenario we're playing. This isn't every game. Your win and lose conditions always depend on your scenario. So flip it open, right? And it'll tell you your victory conditions, right? Controller has to either KO 3 characters or KO the NPC, which we know it's right there. We know it's Adam. All right, so that's how they win. The victory condition in this scenario, remember it's just the scenario, is claim 4 scenario tokens. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 4 of them on the board. So they have to claim all 4 of them and have the NPC escape. Now it explains how you do it, but it's literally you take the NPC and you run it to the spawn zone, right? And I'll save that for you guys to read how to actually do that in this scenario. Now, some things to think about. Remember I told you guys this is your track and this sets up your HP. What happens if you get all the way to 0 HP is one of your heroes is KO'd. Let's say poor Orko got taken out. So he's over here messing around, he gets taken out. In this scenario, it'll also tell you, I do need the book. I was like, I need the book for something else. It'll tell you how the escalation track goes up. So right here, we have escalation triggers. When a character is KO'd, increase the track by 1. When 5 scenario tokens, when a scenario token is claimed, increase the track by 1. So it'll also always tell you the escalation, right? And how that's triggered. This is our escalation marker right here, escalation tracker right here. So what that means is if Orko was KO'd, this would go up, and it goes up for everybody. Now, the players and the controllers do slightly different things. The players choose one of their extra skills, and they pick whatever side they want of that extra skill, and they go ahead and set it down. Now, if you remember me talking earlier, there's a green, it matches green. It tells you what you need to do as a player. Green skill, yellow skill, and red skill. So we pick our green skill, and then later on we have a yellow and a red. Now the controller, what they get to do is they get to pick one of their skills on their skill board. I actually like to pick this one a lot. They pick that skill and they flip it over. They empower that skill, which is the gold side. Then they also, you just take it to track. We feel like we run out of these, but you take an energy cube and you pick one of your villains. And as you see, the villains, when they're on the controller side, they have an extra skill area. This would go here to unlock that extra skill area, and it means that they're empowered. So you can empower your characters, and then you empower your skills. So whenever you hit one of the escalation marks, when all the heroes do it, it's the best way to remember it, then also the controller decides to empower one of their characters and one of their traits. And then they're ready to go. All right, so that is escalation. Now, like I said, all you do is you go back and forth until the game is over, right? Once you hit whatever the scenario is, then the game's over and it shifts. And that is basically how you play, I get the board out here. This is how you play Masters of the Universe, the board game, right? Clash for Eternia from CMON. I didn't think I said it in the beginning. In Mattel games, obviously. There are some nuances to rules. There's some little things you have to know. You can throw boulders, but this tells you, these cards tell you all that extra stuff that you need to know. So, I completely blanked. KO'd character isn't completely KO'd or out of the game. What happens on their next turn, you put them to their full health, which is 6. Right there, full health 6. And then they're allowed to spawn in any of their spawn areas. That's why you keep the spawn tokens out. And as like I said, the controller has their area. Same goes with the controllers, characters. Now, the minions that the controllers get only take 1 hit. The robots, the hoverbots, have 1 armor, right? So for a hoverbot, it takes 2 on an attack to take them out. 1 armor blocks 1, and then you have to hit them for 1. Hoverbots are taken out of the game. Minions are taken out, not of the game, they're taken off the board until something allows you to put minions back on. So heroes get to keep coming back and respawning in all the scenarios. Maybe there's one that you can't, but for most scenarios. And then minions are taken off the board and the controller has to pay to bring them back in. And it's energy. You have a card over here. No, remove. Where's my... I don't know where it's at. I think it's right here. You have one of the cards, your skills, reserve. So 3 energy cubes spawn up to 2 minions, 2 energy cubes activate up to 2 minions, right? That's something useful you can do when you get your strategy card out. So that's it. You go back and forth and you just play He-Man, really is what it is. And the different scenarios will give you different nuances to rules. But that is definitely how you play Masters of the Universe, the board game, right? Clash for Eternia. I'm Steven with Cardboard Coalition. Help us grow the coalition by liking, commenting, subscribing, all those fun things that you do to help people on YouTube, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.